Chers collègues, bienvenue et merci d'être là aujourd'hui pour cette réunion d'information spéciale. Nous nous préparons pour notre 10e congrès mondial à Buenos Aires, Argentine. J'ai un message pour vous. Je vais changer à l'anglais. Merci.
Thank you for joining me today for this special briefing. As we prepare to gather in person for our 10th World Congress in Buenos Aires, Argentina, I wanted to make sure that you are all fully informed on the recommendations of the United Nations High-Level Panel on the Teaching Profession. This panel was convened by Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, in response to the growing and frankly alarming global teacher shortage. And the numbers are stark. The world needs 44 million more teachers to ensure quality education for all. And this number only covers primary and secondary education. We are missing many more colleagues in early childhood education and technical and vocational education and training. More and more teachers are forced to leave the profession they love. And fewer people want to join the profession the world needs. Teachers are burning out, and students are missing out. The shortage itself is not news. In many countries, you have been raising the alarm for years. It took tireless advocacy from Education International and from you to make the United Nations listen, and listen they did. At the Transforming Education Summit in 2022, the Secretary General announced the creation of the High-Level Panel on the Teaching Profession. Experts from around the world came together to be part of the panel. Former presidents, ministers of education, academics, representatives from civil society, students, teachers, and most importantly, your global union federation, Education International. Education International was represented by our president, Susan Hopgood, and by our colleagues Manal Hadafe, chair of the EI Arab Cross-Regional Structure Committee, and Mike Thurman, General Secretary of the Singapore Teachers Union. Your voice, our voice, was heard loud and clear throughout the deliberations, and this is evident in the recommendations themselves. Colleagues, we achieved a historic breakthrough. The panel's 59 recommendations reflect the urgency required to reverse the global teacher shortage. They are written with a clarity not normally seen in UN documents. They recognize that investing in well-qualified and well-supported teachers is an investment in the quality and sustainability of our education systems. Here is what Secretary General Guterres had to say at the launch of the recommendations.
Our world has entered a period of dramatic challenge and change. The education system of yesterday won't cut it. Now, more than ever, we need to move towards learning societies. People everywhere need high-quality skills, knowledge and education. Above all, they need the best teachers possible. But today, we face a dramatic shortage of teachers worldwide. And millions of teachers lack the support, skills and continuous training they need to excel in the classroom of the future. These simple truths drove the creation of the high-level panel on the teaching profession, a key follow-up on the UN's Transforming Education Summit in 2022. The panel has developed key recommendations to ensure that every learner has access to a professionally trained, qualified and well-supported teacher. Getting there means investing in teacher training, establishing professional teaching standards, reflecting teachers' voices in policy decisions, and creating national commissions to tackle teacher shortages. I urge all countries, teachers' unions, and partners to consider these recommendations carefully and find ways to bring them to life in their countries. Just as teachers support us all, it's time to support teachers. Let's make sure they have the support, recognition and resources they need to provide quality, relevant education and skills for all.
Just as teachers support us all, it's time to support teachers. Colleagues, this level of support from the United Nations for our profession is unprecedented. This is our moment, and we must mobilize, organize, and leverage this support to effect real change. Every one of you reading the panel's 59 recommendations will recognize our long-standing demands on a broad range of issues, from teacher qualifications, pay, working conditions, precarious work, well-being, and professional respect, this is a copy of the recommendations. And you can also find one that you can print on our website. And we're sharing the link with you in the chat. So colleagues, what do the recommendations say? The recommendations call on governments to ensure competitive, fair, and professional salaries. They call for secure employment, good working conditions, and balanced workloads. They urge governments to guarantee public investment in education and to reject austerity measures. Precarious employment and the use of contract teachers and unqualified personnel must come to an end. And teacher well-being is a priority. When it comes to our professional practice, the high-level panel recommends that all teachers have initial teacher training that is publicly funded, a university degree. It also encourages the provision of stipends for teachers in training. It recommends access to quality continuous professional development that is free and part of their official duties and co-designed with the profession. Our professional autonomy must be respected, and teachers must be given the time and resources to collaborate and create communities of practice. A strong commitment to gender equality, equity, and diversity cuts right across the recommendations. Working environments must be inclusive, safe, and non-discriminatory for teachers in all their diversity, and women's leadership must be encouraged. Refugee teachers and displaced teachers should be provided with pathways into the education workforce of host communities. And when a teacher is hired to work in camps for refugees or displaced persons, their labor rights must be respected. Teachers and education staff working in situations of crisis, disaster, and conflict must be paid. One thing I'm really excited about is the panel's recommendations which put social dialogue and collective bargaining at the heart of transforming education. Policies in education should be developed with your organizations at the table. Employment conditions should be determined through social dialogue, including collective bargaining. And yes, the panel even reaffirms the right to strike. The recommendations also look at the role of technology in education. And the message is clear. Teachers are at the heart of education, and their relationship with students is at the core of learning. Governments must work with teachers to create appropriate policies that support learning and protect student data. And ultimately, teachers' professional autonomy and judgment must be respected to choose how and when to best use technology. Our president, Susan Hopgood, said it clearly when she represented us at the launch of the recommendations in South Africa. With the release of this unanimously agreed upon set of recommendations, it's no exaggeration to say that we've achieved a breakthrough. In fact, there has never been a moment like this. The UN has spoken with one voice, urging governments to act decisively to address the global education crisis by elevating and transforming the role and status of the teaching profession for the well-being of our students, our communities, and our countries. Colleagues, the recommendations are solid and comprehensive, but we know that none can become reality without financing. The panel calls for equitable funding for education and sustainable investment in the teaching profession. Public education must be protected from austerity. Critically, the panel calls on international financial institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund to end all measures that limit education spending and teachers' salaries. And tax revenue is the best way to ensure sustainable education financing. In addition, debt relief and forgiveness should be considered to help countries ensure education funding. And teachers who are working in emergency contexts, well, they also must be supported. The panel calls on the international community to establish a global Teachers in Emergencies Fund. The fund would make sure that teachers working in crises receive fair and timely salaries. Their work to teach and support the most vulnerable children is essential. Colleagues, almost 60 years since the International Labor Organization and UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers was adopted, teachers are now back in the spotlight. These recommendations are a major achievement for our movement, but we cannot stop here. Now we need to organize and mobilize to make the recommendations a reality for every teacher and every student around the world. Your advocacy at country level is the next key step. The recommendations call for the creation of national workforce commissions that bring teachers' unions and governments together to address the teacher shortage and monitor the implementation of the recommendations. We need to make sure these commissions are set up and that they address the challenging issues you face. And Education International is here to support you so that you can make the most of the recommendations in your country and your context. We have put together a toolkit, which you can also find on our website. My colleagues are sharing the link in the chat now, and we will send you a follow-up email with the link to this toolkit. The toolkit includes key text of the recommendations, reflections from our colleagues who were part of the panel and helped develop the recommendations, as well as an essential guide to activating the recommendations in your context. The guide will help you identify and unpack the key topics and recommendations that are most relevant to you and your members. The guide also provides examples of education unions advocating on these topics around the world to inspire and encourage you. So, I encourage you to visit the Education International website and explore the toolkit to activate the recommendations of the UN High-Level Panel in your country. Colleagues, this is a turning point for education globally. Many of you have already started to integrate the recommendations into your advocacy. Our colleagues in Argentina, Cameroon, Lebanon, Indonesia, the Netherlands, and Ireland have brought the recommendations to the negotiating table. They are making sure their governments are aware of the new global consensus on what it takes to ensure quality education for all. For example, while I was in Indonesia recently, together with union leadership, we presented the recommendations to the Minister of Finance. This meeting was part of their campaign to deliver a full 20% of the national budget to education, which is crucial for them to address the 1 million teacher gap. In the Netherlands, our member organizations used the recommendations on their first meeting with their new government as a global benchmark for bargaining. And I simply cannot agree more with the president of EI's Latin American region, Sonia Lesso, who told delegates at the regional conference that this is not an abstract document, but rather an organizing tool critical to our success. If you haven't already done so, I urge you to familiarize yourself with the recommendations and the toolkit we've developed for you. I also urge you to share them with your membership at large. We look forward to building advocacy and action for these recommendations, specifically when we come together for our Congress. This will be central to our work as we move forward and face the many challenges for our profession in a changing world. Colleagues, now is the time to organize, to mobilize and join forces to go public and make sure our governments fully fund education and implement these recommendations. Raising the status of our profession and increasing the necessary investment in education to ensure quality public education for all is our top priority. So as we close, I want to leave you with the voices of our executive board members and images from different EI regions as we take our demands from recommendations to action. Our union power can transform education all around the world because we are Education International.
The UN High-Level Panel on the Teaching Profession was convened in response to the alarming global teacher shortage. It brought together a diverse group of stakeholders, including Education International, which proudly represented the voice of teachers and our unions. The panel led to 59 landmark recommendations, which call for significant changes in how governments support and value teachers.
Parmi ces recommandations, Une des plus urgentes concerne la nécessité de salaires compétitifs, équitables et professionnels pour les enseignants et enseignantes, comparables à ceux d'autres professions nécessitant des niveaux d'éducation similaires, assurer la sécurité financière et le respect des enseignants et enseignantes est fondamental.
The recommendation also focus on professional practice, quality teacher training, professional development, and respect for our professional autonomy. These are key pillars to enhance the teaching and learning experience.
The recommendations highlight the need to foster gender equity and diversity in our school communities, creating inclusive, safe, and non-discriminatory working environments for all teachers is essential for our profession's growth and sustainability.
Technology and the future of work in education receive significant attention in the panel recommendations. They advocate for a balanced approach that prioritizes the unique teacher-student relationship, giving educators the professional autonomy to choose the best technological tools to support effective teaching and learning.
Public education financing is key. The panel urges governments to ensure equitable funding for education, sustainable investment in the teaching profession, and an end to austerity measures. International financial institutions such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank must not undermine quality education.
The recommendations of the high-level panel on the teaching profession mark a significant milestone in our collective journey towards a more equitable, effective, and respected teaching profession. Let us seize this moment to translate these recommendations into actions that uplift the teachers and students alike. Together, we have the power to shape the future of education.
Las recomendaciones son un testimonio de la fuerza del movimiento sindical y el resultado de nuestra lucha incansable para enfrentar desafíos y aprovechar oportunidades para la profesión docente. Es un llamado a la acción para que todos y todas nos organicemos, movilicemos y hagamos que estas recomendaciones se conviertan en una realidad.
Notre chemin à suivre comprend l'établissement de commissions nationales réunissant syndicats d'enseignants et gouvernements pour aborder de manière collaborative ces questions cruciales. Ces commissions joueront un rôle vital dans le suivi de la mise en œuvre des recommandations du groupe de haut niveau, garantissant que la profession enseignante soit soutenue, valorisée et équipée pour relever les défis du XXIe siècle.
Para realizar los cambios que necesitamos hay dos elementos esenciales: el diálogo social y la negociación colectiva. Docentes y sindicatos deben ser parte integral de la formulación de políticas educativas. Nuestras voces deben ser escuchadas, nuestra experiencia debe ser valorada en las decisiones que nos afectan y que van a determinar un futuro mejor para nuestras y nuestros estudiantes.